Good morning, everyone. As everyone gets settled in, I just want to run through a couple housekeeping stuff before we get started. All of you are muted. You do have the ability to mute or unmute yourselves. However, we ask that you remain muted unless you are speaking so we can reduce some of that background noise. Any questions you have, you can put in the chat and we will address them. This session will be recorded and posted to the NAW2022 website afterwards. And this session is using the live transcript feature of Zoom to provide closed captioning. And with that, Tony, it's all yours.
Morning. Thank you all for joining us for the first of a series of webinars during National Apprenticeship Week. I would like to turn this over to DCO Director Sylvia Garcia to officially welcome everyone.
Great, thanks, Tony. Hi, everybody. It's so exciting to be here today. I'm just really excited to be a part of a National Apprenticeship Week. As Tony mentioned, my name is Sylvia Garcia, and I serve as the Director of the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. Today's event is an exciting opportunity to kick off National Apprenticeship Week by recognizing the incredible progress we've made in Illinois by employers, training providers, and our workforce system. Apprenticeship programs are so important to the workforce system, and we're really excited that we've been able to expand them in the state of Illinois across our diversified economy. I want to thank the Illinois employers that are here today who are actively supporting apprenticeships and expansion of apprenticeships in our great state. I also want to thank the training providers and workforce system representatives that support our employers and apprentices in making life-changing connections. Apprenticeships can provide a vital pathway for Illinois workers and their family to prosper and to achieve economic mobility. Apprenticeships also help employers by expanding the highly qualified talent pool of prospective employees, and apprenticeships support the overall economic well-being of Illinois across a number of different industries. With more than 540 registered apprenticeship programs, 18,000 active apprentices, and nearly 4,000 new apprenticeships in the second quarter of this year alone, Illinois is honored to support such a strong statewide network. And because it's not just about enrolling in an apprenticeship program, we're proud to have the fourth highest number of apprentices completing programs in the United States during fiscal year 2021. We hope to continue to build on that progress. It's so important that folks enroll in apprenticeship programs, but also graduate and get on that career path. As part of our workforce development and training efforts, DCO has established a strong network of providers across the state to recruit, pre-screen, and provide training for so many individuals so they can take advantage of these apprenticeship opportunities. And we've done that with a laser focus on equity. One of the ways we're increasing access and building equity is through our Illinois Works pre-apprenticeship program. This is a program that has been intentionally designed to make sure that we're making and diversifying the options that are available to people of color and women in the building trades. And this program has had incredible strides in its inaugural year over the last year. To date, 70% of Illinois Works pre-apprenticeship participants are African American and 20% are women. These numbers are so much higher compared to the number of folks that are currently in the industry. And these pre-apprenticeship programs give folks the opportunity to jump in and learn the skills to do a pre-apprentice, then be apprentice, and then hopefully go onto that career path of a good paying career. We're also at DCO rolling out a number of various programs that will help with the transition to a clean energy economy. The Climate and Equitable Jobs Act has a focus on communities impacted by energy transition and other underserved populations. We're in the process of rolling out those programs and making sure that they meet people where they are and give folks an opportunity to have a job in these new industries as they grow. These programs and so many others are increasing our reach while supporting the employment needs of local businesses and growing industries. We don't view apprenticeships as just a niche program or just a single opportunity. They represent opportunities for employers and apprentices to come together in all industries across our diversified economy. They strengthen our economic development and our workforce in Illinois. To sum it up, strong apprenticeships lead to a stronger Illinois. And I'm excited to be here today to celebrate and recognize this important work as part of the National Apprenticeship Week. So thank you again for having me today. We hope that you take advantage of all the learning opportunities available this week and beyond. We look forward to more employers and more individuals being part of the apprenticeship network. Thank you so much, and I'll turn it back to Tony. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Garcia. So my name is Tony Fuhrmann. I am Director of Employment and Training for Madison County Employment and Training. So we serve 4 counties in the southwestern Illinois area, but for this event, I also serve as part of the Illinois Workforce Innovation Board's Apprenticeship Committee. So from that committee and from the state of Illinois, we welcome you to Apprenticeship Week. The panel today is going to cover the explosive growth of apprenticeships in Illinois. So we're going to look at this from 3 different areas. one from the national level. So we welcome Debra Cremeens-Risinger. She is the Illinois State Director of Apprenticeships at the Office of Apprenticeship for the state of Illinois. We welcome Kim Kuchenbrod, the Work-Based Learning and Talent Management Administrator Consultant with the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. And we welcome John Michelle, who is owner of the Social Kitchen in Swansea. John will get into this a little bit, but John has the first food truck apprenticeship program in the United States. Daniel Sirota was supposed to join us from Aon, but I think we've been one up by the First Lady and the Secretary of the Department of Labor and Education and HHS, who are all going to be visiting Aon today as part of National Apprenticeship Week. So if Daniel hops on, we'll definitely get him in the conversation, but we will move forward now. So Debra, I'll start with you. Can you take a couple minutes and give us a little bit about your background? And then in addition, please give us a little background of your experiences with the apprenticeship program.
So I started my knowledge with registered apprenticeship as actually being an apprentice. So I was an apprentice with the International Union of Operating Engineers starting in 1989. And I completed my second apprenticeship with the U.S. Department of Labor as apprenticeship and training representative. I started working with DOL, and then as my knowledge gained, I became the state director in Nebraska in 2014. And then I accepted the position as state director in Missouri. And as of August 1st of this year, I accepted the position here in Illinois. So over the last 26 years, I've had the opportunity to expand apprenticeship in IT, transportation, energy, manufacturing, youth. We've developed more opportunities for individuals to learn a new skill and assist employers in developing high-skilled employees. This was, when I started, was primarily a focus for construction and manufacturing. And in 26 years, it has become apparent that this will also work in healthcare, transportation, IT. I think that we are only limiting ourselves by our imagination and exploring opportunities. Thank you, Tony, for inviting me.
Kim, a little bit about your background and then also your background and experiences with apprenticeships. You're muted, Kim.
There it is. Sorry about that. Good morning, everyone. My background in apprenticeships began many years ago when I was working with youth workforce development initiatives. And I worked with manufacturing industries to help set up some youth prepaid apprenticeship training programs, which were very successful. We were using the German style of apprenticeships at that time. Fast forwarding, my role now in apprenticeships is overseeing the Apprenticeship Illinois initiative and the funding that we receive through the Department of Labor. And I work with our navigators and intermediaries. What we do is we create sector partners, and through those sector partnerships, we address all the different pathways for identifying and creating talent to fill those skills gaps. And with that, of course, apprenticeship is one of those options. So what I've seen happening in the apprenticeship arena is very similar to what Debra was saying. It usually, when you think of apprenticeships, it starts out that it's in the construction trades, and then it has gone into manufacturing. But it is what limits us in apprenticeships is only our imagination. And I have seen so many new programs come from apprenticeships, from from healthcare, culinary arts, equine, distilling, and from A to Z in job descriptions, we can create apprenticeship training programs. So as we continue to grow Apprenticeship Illinois at the state level, we will continue to expand with our intermediaries, our training providers, but working more directly one-on-one with those employers so we can identify those hard to fill, high demand positions, and how can we use apprenticeship training programs as a way to onboard those individuals versus the traditional career pathways of training, such as your 2 or 4 year university. It just gives another pathway option for those to consider. And then the other part of it that I think is so important that we look at is a way to diversify our training pools. And as Director Sylvia had said, we are looking at expanding construction trades to women and to more minority groups, but we're also looking at individuals such as veterans or individuals who have a disability, and even working with reentry as a way of onboarding an individual as they reenter the workforce. Another great thing about apprenticeships is using it, and this is an area that sometimes is overlooked, but as an upskilling opportunity for incumbent workers. If you have those individuals who are ready for the next level, why look outside your own backyard when that individual may already be there? And you can use an apprenticeship training program to upskill them to the frontline management positions. So I go exactly with what Debra was saying. Sky's the limit on apprenticeship opportunities, and we only hold ourselves back on things that we are not willing to try. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Kim. So John, that's the government perspective. So we look to you for the business perspective. So again, a little bit about your background. I know it's pretty impressive. And then if you could talk a little bit about the food truck program and what you've seen and your vision and view of apprenticeships, please.
Great. Thanks, Tony, Director. It's great to be here with you all this morning. I come from a different kind of government background on the military side. I'm a retired Air Force general, then went into the business world, really focused a lot around innovation. We returned to the community and then wanted to find a way to leverage existing programs or find gaps in programs and then solve real community problems. And that's one of the exciting areas I see with apprenticeships. We know apprenticeships allow skills development. They provide critical capabilities and mentorship to individuals to give them opportunities at the same time serve needs for employers and others. But the other thing I think it does, and the one we focused our entire effort on, is they can concurrently, they're a great mechanism to also serve real and solve real community challenges. Our passion is for delivering dignified dining to people who are struggling in communities across America. And we're specifically focused right now in Southern Illinois and across the river in Missouri. What that means is we saw about over 50% of the capacity during COVID to serve hot meals to people who struggle across communities was lost. We see it because of the stringent health demands associated with a post-COVID environment. We see it it's hard to get employees, volunteers are even tougher. So a lot of the individuals and the groups, church kitchens, community kitchens, and others, they still continue to provide capability in terms of bagged meals and others. But the hot meal quotient, the nutrition, all those elements. So our food deserts have essentially, in our view, expanded during that time, and they're harder to reach because it's so expensive to run a kitchen. And we just don't see that that's going to be replaced. So we started looking for an innovative way to go about it. Leveraging our background, we noticed that one thing that proliferated exponentially during COVID was food trucks. Why? They're outside. They were able to mitigate the limitations associated. They also have grown to where they were kind of niche in the old days, and now they're very, very sophisticated. They're very unique, and culturally, they're widely accepted. So we simply looked and said, why couldn't we use food trucks? And if you want to think about it in a simple term, it's really almost a glorified and systematized Meals on Wheels program, except you're incentivizing business owners. As we started to look at it, we realized that the key was we need to give people the skills to actually effectively operate food trucks, tie them into a system of support. That's why initially the food truck apprentice program or the apprentice program was so appealing. What we've discovered is no one had tried to create an apprentice program in the United States of America. So that's what we set out to do in phase one of our effort, working with Tony and Lee and the whole host of others who've been magnificent, was establish a program through Department of Labor that creates a curriculum, a guided methodology that allows people to move towards the pathway of becoming a small business owner in the form of a food truck operator / owner. That's what phase one is, and that's what we're just wrapping up. What that means is the DOL recently has certified our program. We're out of probation. We have been, so that part of it, the curriculum portion is done. We've been testing it. We've been running it with a whole host of apprentices. And tomorrow morning, we have several graduates. And tomorrow morning, our primary graduate, who also leads the program from the curb level at Social Kitchen, will be graduating into the phase of food truck ownership. This entire system that we created is really simple. It's the food trucks are all out, we know they're everywhere. We've now created an education system. It's all united by a simple tokenized system that economically incentivizes at $8 a meal food truck operators to be part of the solution, but at the same time, it helps support their small business. We're in the process of testing that with St. Clair County next, and then we move into phase two. Phase two of the way we use the apprentice program and systematize this, because our dream, if you will, is to create a program leveraging the food truck apprentice program, but more importantly, and the currency of caring that we've created that ties all this together, to build a regional hub with our partners in Collinsville. This is what this allows us to do. And we had a question before the chat about right now, food truck operators have so many barriers to effectiveness. One of them is having to go to every single county to get a health certificate when effectively the requirements are exactly the same. So we're looking at building a regionalized training center and operations center. Think of it as an airport for food trucks. We've actually identified a place in Collinsville. Myself and Mitch Blair, the city manager there, have already submitted that to the state. We would operate 20 food trucks there. We would effectively create a food truck academy. And the ultimate goal, on top of helping create more resilience, not just within the food truck community, but in our time frame in the last 10 months, to show how effective this program is, we have delivered, we're going to, by the end of this year, we're on par for 5,000 hot meals delivered to neighborhoods that are in distress at a curb level. What that means is 100+ meals at a time, delivered working in conjunction with leaders on demand. That's what's very exciting. At the same time, incentivizing the operators that do it and training people in new skills and how to be part of a solution while learning how to be effective business people. So we think that apprenticeship is at the foundation of creating something that we hope we could then hand off to other states, let them do it, pick up all the work that's been done here in the magnificent state of Illinois, and concurrently create new capabilities in a workforce while solving a growing community problem that we see across America in this form of delivering hot meals to people who are struggling, and most importantly, delivering dignity to them and knowing that they're cared about by their fellow citizens. So I'll pause it there because I can go a long time because we're reasonably passionate about this, as you can tell.
Thank you, John. Debra, we'll come back to you. Each of you have a different perspective. When you hear explosive growth of apprenticeships in Illinois, what does that mean to you?
Thank you. To me, this means that we're developing high quality opportunities for Illinois residents and high skilled employees for the employers. This makes Illinois a more competitive for growing business in the state, and it makes the state a better place to live and provides opportunities for the next generation of employees and employers. We don't have a lack of need for jobs. We have a lack of the skills, and registered apprenticeship can fit that bill. Going back to what we said earlier, that we are only limited by our imagination of how we can fill this gap to let individuals be productive citizens in Illinois and strengthen the state. Thank you.
Kim, from the state perspective, when you hear explosive growth of apprenticeships in Illinois, what does that mean at the state level for Illinois?
Thank you, Tony. I think from the state's perspective, we hear way too often how employers are struggling to identify individuals to fill those skills gaps that Deb was just talking about. And there are so many opportunities for individuals to connect to the workforce, but there is a disconnect on how do I get there? How do I start to connect with the employers, and how does the employers connect with the talent? So today's employers are starting to look at exploring different business models to onboard those individuals quicker than the traditional pathway. So with apprenticeships, one of the things that we are looking at is, and we're doing this through what we call the talent pipeline management model, is we are taking a very granular look at what are the needs of the employers, but trying to put the employers in the driver's seat so that they have the voice with their training providers, so that they can look at what are the exact competencies that we are needing to fill these positions and what are acceptable credentials. And one of the credentials that they are now looking at that for many, many years has been overlooked is at the apprenticeship model. Sometimes the employers have set the bar too high. And when they've set that bar too high with their job descriptions, a lot of the talent went, they missed it. For example, if you're an individual and you're out there looking for an employment opportunity and the employer is saying that you have to have the bachelor's degree or the associate's degree in order to qualify for the job, the individual may have all the credentials that are needed, but because they don't have that specific credential in their possession, then the individual feels like they are not the person for that job. So when we're looking at apprenticeships and looking at stackable credentials, it's opening the door for so many individuals who already have those skill sets, or they may be lacking one or two of those skill sets, and we can use that through the apprenticeship training models. And as we're doing this, the individuals who are out there and trying to connect with the employers, they're finding a new way to look at those career opportunities, knowing that they do not need to have the traditional credentials. That apprenticeship has created basically a work-based learning, earn and learn model, so that they're earning an income while learning and earning the credential at the same time. And we've seen many, many individuals become very successful in this program, but it's meeting their own personal needs while they're going through training, but also filling that skills gap that the employers are needing to fill at the same time. Thank you, Tony.
John, from a business perspective, when you hear explosive growth of apprenticeships in Illinois, what does that mean to a businessman?
Well, again, explosive growth, what we see is, a tremendous amount of desire and opportunity on behalf of employers, right? And the frustration is the churn and or just the lack of access to talent. But as we heard, the earn and learn part of that, the ability now to give people three primary things that I see. The structure of these programs, it makes it easier for people to find confidence. They can see something, they can actually develop skills, which gives them confidence. They can have, they see a pathway now. It's not just come into a place, be dropped in. A lot of times, just by virtue of the sheer need, that's what happens. People innately like to, especially younger people, like to know that there is a path. Remember, a lot of them are coming out of a system we call high school, or some with college, and what they're used to is curriculums. They're looking to show me, teach me along the way. And so apprenticeships are extraordinarily well suited for that. And it provides the discipline that businesses need to thrive. The second thing it does is it provides mentorship and leadership. A lot of them are looking for that in general in their lives. So by having a structured program that they can see, measure progress, and have someone invest in them, essentially the mentor, we've seen that make a tremendous difference, especially if you're going to be dealing with some either underserved population groups or individuals with disabilities who at the same time need to develop a little more confidence, or it might be their first foray into the workforce. They need people to guide them through that process, and apprenticeships do that. And last but not least, it creates unique opportunities for them, in this case, where there's non-existing programs or unstructured programs or an unorganized system, which I'll focus on the food truck piece of it. it's not just a food truck piece, it's just hospitality in general needs to be reimagined, I believe. And this creates a means by which people can not only see how they can serve today, but then how they can have opportunities to lead and or perhaps even get to a level that never even imagined in the future. So I think we've seen significant growth. I think we will continue to see significant growth because the demand signal is there for people who want to make a difference with their lives. They just don't fully know how to do it. But the apprenticeship program, I believe, provides exactly the right framework to be able to help people do just that.
Thank you, John. Debra, I'll swing back to you. How do you see apprenticeship programs continuing to grow and be an important part of meeting employer needs for a skilled, trained workforce?
You know, registered apprenticeship we're celebrating our 80th year this year. And I think that that says a lot. So I believe that registered apprenticeship is the best tool in this country at this time, and developing this generation and the next generation. As registered apprenticeship combines both the hands-on training as well as the education and the mentoring with little or no debt when you're learning and you're earning at the same time. You get a fully trained individual that can assist each employer in reaching their goals. So,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, did I cut somebody off?
No, go ahead.
I'm
I'm sorry. Yep, no, go on.
So this method makes apprentices desirable for employees and high skills. They're well-rounded. We have the ability of utilizing youth while they're still in school. We have the ability to upskill somebody who is been in working, but maybe that's not their dream and they want to move on, and we can upskill. You know, technology is a big part of our lives now, and we can utilize this tool to retrain individuals in IT and healthcare, where they can still provide for their families, yet learning the skills they need to make the employer the best that they can be. So I only see it being needed more in the future than what it's ever been before. Thank you.
So Debra, I'm going to ask you a follow-up question here. I know Director Garcia specifically mentioned pre-apprenticeship programs. You just touched on youth apprenticeship programs. I think in Illinois, we have a long way to go in youth apprenticeship programs, working with the schools. Can you touch a little bit more on youth apprenticeship programs and where you see the possible growth in that area?
Well, I think there's going to be a huge growth in youth apprenticeship programs. We want the apprentices to see what is available here locally before they go off to college, because there's so much opportunity here, but so many are always thinking about leaving the nest and moving on. And that's great. You know, we all need to expand and live our own dreams, but there is a wealth of opportunity right here in this state. And if we can show the youth that that's there and show them the possibilities, and not just for a job for now, but a career where they can continue to grow and to go back to your first question with pre-apprenticeships are wonderful. They provide individuals the knowledge that they need to move on to a full registered apprenticeship programs. It provides them the terminologies and whether or not this really is what their calling is. For an example, let's say that you have a pre-apprenticeship program in the healthcare field, and you realize early on that you really can't stand all of the technology stuff that you need to do in dealing with patients. But you still want to work in healthcare. Being in the environment within the hospitals and the doctor's offices can open your eyes to how other opportunities where you can still work within the healthcare department, but maybe not as a nurse. Maybe it's in coding. Maybe it's in a lab. Maybe it's in billing. Cybersecurity. Maybe it just isn't touching the patients, but that's where pre-apprenticeship really needs to be focusing on, is to use it as a tool to explore where individuals really want to be.
Thank you. Kim, how do you see the apprenticeship programs continuing to grow and be an important part of meeting employer needs for a skilled, trained workforce, specifically in Illinois?
I want to go back and I'm going to answer this question, but I want to piggyback off of something that Deb was just sharing. And first, I want to start out with the statistic that 93% of apprentices who complete a registered apprenticeship training program, they are retained into an employment, and they have an average annual salary of about $77,000. That's a very doable salary that an individual could live on. But when you were talking about the youth apprenticeship component of it, basically, when we are looking at the youth apprenticeship to pre-apprenticeship to a registered apprenticeship, we are creating a value stream starting at that high school level. And Deb is so spot on of letting the student see it, touch it, feel it, taste it, figure out what it is that they want to do before they start investing in that post-secondary training opportunity, no matter which pathway it is, 2-year, 4-year, or a trades program. But I want to share with you a success story that I'm very, very proud to be part of a young man who decided he thought he wanted to go into some type of manufacturing, but wasn't quite sure of which path to take. And so he enrolled in high school into 2 career and tech ed programs, and he applied for a youth paid apprenticeship training program with a local manufacturer. He started that as a junior and senior. And as he started towards his senior year, there's a couple of things that were aha moments for him. First and foremost, his parents were absolutely amazed at how this individual started really embracing his education and started connecting the dots. This is why I need to know algebra and algebra 2 and calculus. Beforehand, he was just going through the motions of school, but not really enjoying it. Upon graduation, that young man had completed all of the required NIMS credentials from that community college and was within 1 semester of completing his associate's degree. The employer offered him full-time employment upon graduation, but he wanted a little more. He wanted to finish that associate's degree. So they hired him, instead of hiring him on as a full-time employee, what they did is they hired him as a college intern, and the manufacturer paid for him to complete his associate's degree. Again, reducing his overall post-secondary expenses coming out of his own pocket. After that, he went to work with them over the summer, and he felt he would be a better employee for them if he finished and got his bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering. And so he actually went to the employer and talked to them and talked about his goals and opportunities. And he was accepted to Southern Illinois University into their engineering program. The employer agreed to pay for his tuition and books, and he would come back and work for the company as a college intern during the summer breaks and winter breaks and so forth. But he would also work for projects for them when he was on the campus. Fast forwarding, the young man graduated with his bachelor's degree and actually went on and earned his master's in mechanical engineering. And the entire cost of his degrees were covered by the employer. And the agreement was when he completed his degrees, he would come back and work for the company for 2 years. And this all started with a youth apprenticeship training program. And it continued on for that young man until he got his master's degree. And now he's probably sitting at a 6-figure salary with little or no college debt. And it became a win-win for the talent, for both the employer and for the student. And on the other hand, I've seen it where students have gone out at that high school level and they've gone into healthcare and they thought they wanted, like Deb said, they thought they wanted to be a sonographer. But when they discovered that there were bodily fluids involved with it, they figured that that wasn't for them. But they wanted to go into another pathway into that healthcare. And it became a win-win for them. But when the students, and we're building that value stream, they get to see that there are other pathways, whether it be with an apprenticeship training program, a 2-year degree, a 4-year degree. But they get to see how they all connect together. And they also can build their own pathway to say, okay, for right now, this apprenticeship program is exactly what's going to meet me and my needs right now. But if I choose to go on and get those other degrees, then I know I have an employer backing me up and who's going to support me to get there. So I can see as we continue to build apprenticeship training programs, and we are tearing down the silos between the educators, the networks, and the workforce providers who can provide those wraparound services, we are building more of a cohesive platform or cohesive ecosystem. So it's easy to onboard and offboard, but meet the needs of not only the employers, but meet the needs and the learning styles of the individuals who are involved in apprenticeships. Thank you, Tony.
Kim, follow-up question. So I know a lot of your experience has been in rural areas of the state. So can you talk a little bit about the growing apprenticeship in rural areas, some of the possibilities and some of the drawbacks to creating apprenticeship programs in rural areas as opposed to something like the city of Chicago?
Sure. Some of the pros on developing them in the rural areas, the employers are more favorable for the style of apprenticeships because many of the rural school districts have already established a cooperative learning program. But we can turn those cooperative learning programs into those youth paid apprenticeships, gearing them up for that registered apprenticeship training program. The young man that I just shared with you was in a rural area, and there's a lot of manufacturing opportunity, but he just didn't know how to get there. So with limited opportunities in some areas and in some fields, the employers are more open to this because they don't want to lose their talent. As Deb says, you want to keep your talent right there in your own backyard. And yes, students are going to go off and they're going to explore the world. But if you can hold them there and let them know what opportunities are already there, then there's a chance that you're going to hold on to them a little longer. You know, when I've been in the high schools working with students, the first thing they will say, well, there's not any jobs here. And I don't want to work on a farm, and I don't want this, I don't want that. I want the big city of Chicago or St. Louis and Indianapolis because I want to be, let's say they want to go into graphic design and they don't see that opportunity there. But what we're able to do is introduce them to the employers and everybody that was right there in their backyard. They just didn't know that they existed. So through having one-on-one meetings, having different academy meetings, and really getting the employers to come to the table to share those experiences. one of the things that I created that was very, very successful, and this was kind of one of those aha morning moments when you're drinking your coffee in the morning, is when you look in the high schools and you see all the college banners hanging up and down the hallways. Well, that's great and that's wonderful. But I asked myself, why aren't the employers' banners hanging up there? What about that group of students who are going to go directly to the workforce, or they're in an apprenticeship training program? And I went to a group of employers and I shared that idea and I said, where are your banners? And it was an aha moment for them. They were their own worst enemy because they were not marketing the opportunities. So the group that I was working with, it was a manufacturing group. They all created their banners. They were put in the one-stop centers. They were put in all the high schools. And it was amazing, the turnaround of the individuals, the students who were going to go directly to the workforce, who said, I want to know more about this company. I want to know how I can get involved in these youth apprenticeships or any of their apprenticeship training programs that they're offering. And so it does make a difference that when you're working in the rural areas more specifically, is that the businesses come together and they really look at what are they doing wrong to miss this talent and what can they do to correct the situation.
Thank you, Kim. John, you're the employer. So how do you see apprenticeship programs continuing to grow and be an important part of meeting your needs for your skilled, trained workforce?
Well, I think it's fairly obvious for all here that it's a very, very dynamic and challenging time for business owners, right? For a lot of different reasons, economically and then access to talent. So specifically with apprentices, I think one of the challenges, a lot of employers don't know that the apprentice programs really exist, or there's a perception that they're really hard to navigate. And they're hard to access. But ultimately, when you look at the dynamic nature of a post-COVID operating environment, it doesn't matter. You can pick an industry. Everybody's struggling with getting access to talent. They're struggling with growing cost. They're struggling to be able to squeeze variability out of their business. And the people side of it is always has been the most important. So I see apprentice programs as they proliferate and as we communicate success stories. They are an extraordinarily viable and I think even more important dimension that employers need to put into their view of how and their cross-check of how they're going to be able to get at creating viable businesses with access to very good talent. And it helps when they understand that we can literally develop that talent. It doesn't mean it has to stay in the industry, but at least let them serve a season through this kind of earn and learn program that we've referred to multiple times here. And then that ultimately then just feeds a larger system of other employers as people move up and on to other capabilities. So it's a win-win system. So I see programs like apprenticeship. We need to bring a whole bunch of innovation and a whole bunch of different thinking, I believe, to the business world in all dimensions. Doesn't matter if we're talking at Boeing, they struggle with the same things as we do down to hospitality or anything in between. Apprentices are designed to be inherently flexible. They can meet the specific needs. They can be updated. There's a lot of capability and structure already there, and things we've already talked about. There's a lot of individuals out there also who they don't know that there's a different way. I'll share, after hearing the great success story that we just heard here, an example of how we can solve a need in the business and help create and proliferate passion while solving a challenge for perhaps someone who's struggling. We heard about our teammate who went on to get a master's degree in mechanical engineering, and they were facilitated by an employer who leveraged the apprentice program. Well, we have a similar story, as you know, Tony, that we had a young man who's 17 years old and he was homeless. He'd been homeless for several years, living on people's couches, but he had a passion for food. He operated in the food industry. He had a dream of going on to culinary. And so we were able to embrace him through the youth program, moved him into create steady employment, brought him into the food truck apprentice program. He's actually about to graduate as well. He has since turned 18 and we've graduated into the workforce program. He has now been registered with into community college culinary program here at SWIC, and is pursuing his undergraduate, his associate's degree in culinary arts, all made possible by there being a different pathway and offered through the form of a business to solve a real problem, but more importantly, get him on a trajectory that he never saw was possible. As those stories get out, and we know he was recently, I think, honored at the state level as a success story, as others are, I think we want to continue to do that. I think we need to continue to educate employers that this is not just viable, it's, I think, a very, very significant opportunity to develop and then continue to proliferate great talent. And I just think the traditional means of trying to source individuals through programs like Indeed and everything else just creates more churn at a time when what businesses need is less churn, especially when it relates to people.
So a follow-up question, John, as a business owner. So to set up an apprenticeship program, you had to deal with the federal government, the state government, and the county government. Like you said, a lot of times that turns a business owner off thinking it's going to be very painful and very time consuming. Can you touch on that experience? And I think even broader than that, after you touch on that, talk about the importance of the public-private partnership that has worked so well for you and for our area.
Yeah, no, it is that the system, understandably, because we're dealing with taxpayer money, is still pretty bureaucratic, and we all understand why. It's not for lack of people not wanting to, at all levels, wanting to do the right thing and continue to create effective programs and more success stories. It's just still a byproduct. We talked before this session of small example that fits in here. A food truck operator right now has to have a health permit in every county. And we're down here in Southern Illinois. We know there's 4 counties that are readily accessible within about 30-minute drive. So that it's an example of, I believe, an unnecessary barrier. So I think we want to continue to work through is how are there ways for us to create efficiencies, and how can we continue to systematize and elevate, if you will, the level of opportunity in terms of where elements of the bureaucracy can be removed. You always need parts of it. There should be some at entry, but as people move through the system and as we look to expand things like we're trying to do in Collinsville, we're trying to create now a regionalized approach to systematize what's at the heart of the apprentice program, largely to become a barrier, remover of barriers. This allows us to do a method in a very definitive methodology with structure, and then all agents along the way, if they're involved in the conversation, which leads to the public-private partnership. We've been very fortunate that we have a lot of passionate individuals who are very good that have gone out of their way. I've never seen this level of, and I've been in the government a long time, amount of individuals from the apprentice and the workforce programs and the county and everywhere that have done everything in their power to everything from access, how do we get through the paperwork, to literally delivering paperwork and constantly looking for ways to remove impediments to progress. That is marvelous. And when people hear and see that, it makes them want to participate as well as employers. So that has gone extraordinarily well. I do think that, like in any system, we want to continue to find ways to be able to remove unnecessary layers to make adoptability of apprenticeship and scalability of apprenticeships possible. And they're going to happen organically because they're the right solution at the right time. But I think we could actually increase the velocity by which we can grow these programs and proliferate them and systematize them by finding ways to, at every turn, eliminate layers, eliminate requirements, only because we're smartly putting them somewhere along the way, and we're really removing duplication and creating greater levels of empowerment.
Thank you, John. So we saved a few minutes here on the end for any questions from our audience. So if anyone has questions, please unmute yourself or type them in the chat.
Yes, I have a question, if you don't mind. My name's Steve Manessas. I'm with the City Colleges of Chicago. And just a quick question. We've heard a lot about the apprenticeship model, earn to learn and whatnot. What I want to know is, I think some of the struggles that we have and many folks have is educating the organization / industry / community about the opportunity for them. We can educate our students as much as we want, but if we find it a little bit of a struggle, we can get the students involved, but then where do we place them? Do we, it's finding that buy-in. Is there any, what I'm kind of getting at, is there any sort of program or funding or marketing, branding about Apprenticeship Illinois to small and medium to large size businesses across our great state?
Tony, can
So-
I take that question?
You can, or I can. Go on, Kim.
Okay. Well, first of all, under Apprenticeship Illinois, we have a group of navigators and intermediaries. Our navigators work directly with organizations and businesses, and we can bring sectors together to talk about the benefits of apprenticeship training programs and walk them through not only the benefits, but how do you go about setting it up. Then the twins come in, the intermediaries come in, and the intermediaries will come in and help the businesses walk them through. They're kind of the boots on the ground individuals who will help the businesses in establishing that apprenticeship and if it is a good fit for them. When the intermediaries are completing the paperwork, then they start working with Deb and her team and making sure that all the required paperwork is put in place, the approval process is in place with it. So it is a tiered approach to it. In regards to the branding and marketing, Apprenticeship Illinois right now is going through a marketing phase where we are creating a branded image and marketing materials and tools to hand out to those small organizations or those mid-sized organizations. But I would recommend that in the meantime, until we get all of the marketing material out in place, that Apprenticeship Illinois is on just about every social media platform. If you go to Apprenticeship Illinois, you will be able to connect with all of the navigators and their contact information, as well as the resources that are out there. One of the resources that people ask about is, how do I pay for this? Am I responsible for it? Who covers these costs? What about wraparound services? And are there any tax credits? And there are links out there, especially on the tax credits that employers can use to help offset the cost of the apprenticeship training programs. And then, of course, we have everything from, the LinkedIn, the Facebook, the Twitter, all of those other platforms where we keep up to date with all of our marketing information out there. But I do encourage you to reach out to me or go through Apprenticeship Illinois website, connect with us, and we would be happy to meet with you one-on-one or do a web session with you.
Yeah, so as chair of the marketing committee for the apprenticeship committee, we worked very hard early on to determine what businesses wanted. And so one of the things that we heard were, find us regional people who are about the same size, so who can tell us that apprenticeships work. And we continue to work on that as one of our key pieces, finding those business champions. That's why somebody like John, who can talk to it and talk about the successes, is so valuable as part of this. So we continue to look for those on an ongoing basis. The marketing group early on determined that we needed to emphasize our marketing to the business side, because without businesses, there are no apprentices. So Kim, my organization is looking to develop an apprenticeship program. How do you go about it? What is the first step?
The first step would be to go to the Apprenticeship Illinois website. There is an information form that employers can fill out, which will come directly to me, and we will be happy to start the process and connecting you to either the navigator, the intermediary, or myself, who will sit down and work with you.
Also in the chat, Kimberly put in there a link to go to as well. So John, here's one for you. What incentives are there for employers?
So you've got, we've heard about tax credits. That's probably, I would say, the easiest, if you will, the most accessible. There are, depending on, there's at times various grant programs, as we know, that provide funds, everything from a mentor side over to, depending on the youth program. There's people who will pay to reimburse. At the youth program, it's 100%. Again, it takes a certain level of qualifying. That's why really taking the time to understand the nature of the environment of the people that you're focused on, understanding then the nature of the economic incentives. Under the workforce, a lot of the things that we find, or at least I have found, other than the mentor program, which was the most agile form of funds, because what it does is incentivizes the teachers, the individuals that are actually doing the teaching and the leading. And in many regards, I think that's very, very important, because a lot of the people that you bring into the program are looking for that. They're looking for someone to provide that, not just framework academically, but they're looking for someone that can invest in them. The other part of that is the primary source that at least we've seen and have been able to access some has been under when individuals meet certain conditions, there's a ready amount of funds through workforce. And what that means is they have to go through your local workforce board, and individuals, they qualify them, if you will. Again, that process has a number of steps to it, but once they actually work through the program, then they're reimbursable at a level from, we often see 75 to even 100% for a period of time. So there are a whole series of ways to be able to, the place to start, other than, so you've got general information that we're seeing here accessible to the site. I would highly encourage you to make contact at your county level with the individuals that work workforce, at the individuals that work apprentice, and then they'll be able to specifically help guide. We have found that they are more than anxious, extraordinarily accommodating, and very, very passionate about making this program a success. So they will be able to contextualize the funding streams available and the pathway to get there.
Thank you, John. So we are out of time. It's a quick hour. So I would like again to thank our panelists, Debra Cremeens-Risinger from the U.S. Department of Labor, Kim Kuchenbrod from the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, and also John Michelle, the owner of Social Kitchen in Swansea, Illinois. I will tell you the best tater tots that I've ever had. So if you ever get to Swansea, I highly recommend it. Thanks you all for joining us. And I'd just like to mention, this is the first of a series of 5 webinars this week honoring National Apprenticeship Week in Illinois. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., there will be non-traditional sectors. On Wednesday, training of mentors for the employer is a very important part. On Thursday, employer boot camp. Someone was asking about an employer and the incentives and how to get involved. That would be a great session for them to be involved in. And then the most uplifting webinar of the week is Friday, where you can hear from apprentices. They can tell you their stories about apprenticeships and what that meant to them and how it has changed their lives. So again, thank you all for attending this morning, and we hope you will come back and celebrate National Apprenticeship Week with us throughout the week.